The doctor stared at the ultrasound screen for a long moment, then slowly turned to me and said the words that split my life in two. "You need to leave your husband." My heart dropped so hard I couldn't breathe, because this wasn't marriage counseling or gossip. It was coming from a medical professional who looked genuinely afraid for me. Before I continue, if intense real-life stories like this pull you in, please take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Your support helps keep these stories alive and reaching the right people. I had gone into that appointment thinking it would be routine, just another ultrasound. I was 14 weeks pregnant, nervous in the normal way first-time mothers are, rehearsing questions in my head about vitamins and due dates. My husband, Mark, had offered to come, but I told him to stay at work. He'd been stressed lately, snapping over small things, and I didn't want to deal with his mood in a doctor's office. The room was dim, the machine hummed softly, and I watched the screen with a mixture of excitement and fear. When the technician's smile faded and she quietly left to get the doctor, I knew something wasn't right. Still, nothing prepared me for what came next. Dr. Harris came in, older, calm, the kind of man who had probably delivered thousands of babies. He studied the screen carefully, zooming in, measuring, frowning slightly. I asked if my baby was okay, my voice trembling. He said, "The baby is alive," which should have been comforting, but the way he said it made my stomach twist. Then he asked a question that seemed completely unrelated. "Has your husband been with you at your appointments before?" I shook my head, confused. He nodded slowly, as if confirming something to himself. That's when he told me to leave my husband, not eventually. Not after thinking about it, no. I laughed nervously, assuming I'd misunderstood. "Excuse me?" Dr. Harris pulled up a chair and sat directly in front of me. "I wouldn't say this unless I was sure," he said quietly. He explained that the ultrasound showed signs of repeated abdominal trauma. Not one incident, several. The placenta showed damage consistent with impact injuries. He asked me if I'd fallen, if I'd been in an accident. My mind raced, grasping for excuses. I told him I was clumsy, that I bumped into things, that pregnancy made me dizzy. He didn't argue. He just looked at me with a kind of sadness that felt worse than judgment. "These injuries don't come from bumping into furniture," he said. "And if this continues, you may not survive this pregnancy. Neither may your child." I wanted to argue. I wanted to scream that Mark loved me, that he'd never intentionally hurt me. But images flashed through my mind, moments I'd buried so deep, I almost forgot they existed. The night he shoved me during an argument and said I made him do it. The time he grabbed my arms so hard it left bruises, then cried and apologized, promising it would never happen again. The way his anger had escalated since I became pregnant, as if the baby inside me was something he was competing with instead of loving. Dr. Harris wasn't finished. He told me something else the ultrasound revealed. The baby's blood type didn't match what it should have been if Mark were the father. I felt like the room tilted. "That doesn't make sense," I whispered. "I've only been with my husband." He met my eyes. "I ran the numbers twice," he said. "I'm sorry, but biologically, he cannot be the father." I left the clinic in a fog, clutching a folder of papers and emergency numbers I hoped I wouldn't need. I sat in my car for an hour before driving home, rehearsing what I would say, what I would do. When I walked into the house, Mark was on the couch, scrolling through his phone like nothing in the world was wrong. He looked up and smiled, then frowned when he saw my face. "What's wrong?" he asked. I told him the doctor was concerned. I didn't tell him everything. Not yet. His jaw tightened immediately. "That doctor's an idiot?" he snapped. "They always try to scare pregnant women." His reaction sent a chill through me. No concern, no questions about the baby, just anger. That night, he lost his temper over something trivial, a misplaced bill, and slammed his fist into the wall inches from my head. I remember Dr. Harris's voice, steady and urgent. Leave. I packed a bag while Mark slept and drove to my sister's house before sunrise. Over the next few days, the truth unraveled in ways I couldn't ignore anymore. Medical tests confirmed what the doctor had said. The baby wasn't Mark's. I confronted him, shaking, desperate for an explanation. He exploded, accusing me of cheating, of trying to trap him, of ruining his life. In that moment, something clicked. The violence, the control, the way he needed to dominate every situation, it was never about me. It was about power. I later learned through a lawyer that Mark had tampered with my birth control before I got pregnant, trying to bind me to him permanently. The father of my child turned out to be someone from my past. A brief, confusing mistake I'd convinced myself didn't matter because it was over. But it mattered. It mattered enough to save my life. I stayed with my sister through the rest of my pregnancy. It wasn't easy. I felt shame, fear, grief for the marriage I thought I had. But with every doctor's visit, every ultrasound showing my baby growing stronger now that the trauma had stopped, I felt something else too. Relief, strength. When my daughter was born, healthy and screaming and perfect, Dr. Harris visited my room. He smiled and said, "I'm glad you listened." I cried harder than I had in months. Mark tried to contact me after the birth, leaving messages that shifted between apologies and threats. I never went back. I filed for divorce, obtained a restraining order, and rebuilt my life piece by piece. Sometimes I think about that moment in the ultrasound room, how close I came to dismissing the warning, to walking back into danger because it was familiar. If that doctor hadn't spoken up, if he hadn't risked crossing a line, my story might have ended very differently. Now, when I look at my daughter sleeping peacefully, I understand the truth I wasn't ready for back then. Love doesn't hurt you into silence. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away when someone finally shows you what you've been refusing to see.